I decided to start calling these groups Hacking Capitalism because I work in technology, right? And I feel very like connected to hackers. But what I like about hacking is that it's just like a way around a system or a way around an impediment, right? And I think about capitalism as like a whole interlocking system of impediments, right? It's sort of put together to feel like, oh, I can't get through this, or there's too much going on, or it's like, you know, it's really set up to make us feel like we're having individual failures, when actually what's going on is it's a whole structure that is predicated on like a lot of people experiencing all these individual failures. So this is, or like this whole set is called Hacking Capitalism. And the idea here is just to motivate us to start to work on our money, work on our finances, but from like an ethical or anti-capitalist perspective, because that's what I bring into the room. I also do anti-capitalist, like personal finance classes, small business classes, and other things like that. And I always teach from intersectional and feminist perspective. So I bring that into the space as well. So we're gonna like just really, really dive into talking about divesting from banks that we don't feel good about. Everyone has a handout, so you don't have to follow along as we go, but this will go home with you, and I'll email you a link to it as well. So you're welcome to pay attention, take notes, learn however it makes sense to you. So the question on the table is, to me, to start, what is divesting, right? In a way, it's kind of like the opposite of investing. Divesting is pulling your money out, right? Like anytime we buy something, and anytime we put our money into a bank, whether it's like in our checking account, our savings account, or like in our investments, in our 401ks or retirement accounts, we're loaning that bank money, right? Or if you buy a bond, you're like loaning that country or that municipality money. So there's a way that you're saying like, hey, cool, take my money, do whatever you gotta do, right? So you can then logically follow from there. If you're like, bank that I've given my money to, municipality that I've given my money to, I don't really like what you're doing, I'm not in agreement with it, like it might not feel actually that good to put your money on loan to that organization. So the idea with divesting, right, is you take your money out and you put it with an organization who you feel does something that's more in line with what you're doing, right? And a lot of people were talking about this when like the Dakota Access Pipeline protests that were like led by the amazing First Nations folks that were doing that were big, right? Because then it really became revealed like what banks are funding this. You know, we started having more conversations, right? Like what banks are funding what kind of ecological disaster. Oh my God, you know, Chase, Citibank, Capital One, Bank of America, right? Like we don't necessarily need to be reminded that these banks, you know, don't have individual human or ecological best interests in mind, but sometimes we need to have it like put in our faces, right? For like the impact to be there. So the whole idea is with money, right? With our money in capitalism, we don't have total choice, right? Because we're like stuck in this system that like doesn't have the individual's best interests in mind. But we do have some choices, right? Like anytime that we have a choice, we have ethics. Without ethics,